The next entry in Disney's MCU is The Marvels. And as we've covered many times here already, that film is looking at perhaps having the worst box office opening of any Marvel Cinematic Universe title to date. Now, the question a lot of folks have begun to ask out there in the box office sphere is, has Disney abandoned this film? Seeing weak pre-sales leading into what may be a very bad performance, is Disney pulling back on marketing dollars or shuffling them elsewhere? And what's really strange is in the last 24 to 48 hours, it seems like perhaps some well-placed and intentional Disney leaks regarding some possible cameos in this film may be a last-ditch effort or a Hail Mary to try to salvage this film's performance. Let's talk about it.
Renegade Online.
Well, folks, welcome back. Another great day here at Valiant Renegade. It's good to see everybody out there once again. And if you are like one of the many folks watching this video, not yet subscribed to this channel, please take a moment and turn that little red subscribe button to gray. Hit that like button, hit that notification bell, share this sucker out on the social medias, and of course, please do leave a comment before you head out the door today. Join us every Sunday afternoon at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show, and we'll also have a very special live show on Friday night, October 27th at 9 p.m. to celebrate 50,000 subs here on YouTube for the Valiant Renegade channel. The problem for Disney right now is on your screen, highlighted in blue. As of last week's Box Office Pro pre-sale tracking for the Marvels, they're looking at a $50 to $75 million opening weekend range as of right now. Those numbers are probably going to be updated either later today or tomorrow. And also a $120 to $189 million total domestic box office run. And as you can see, those numbers changed precious little from the week before. Only down 2% when even up 2% wouldn't have been much. But it just goes to show that even after the first entire week of ticket pre-sales and then a second added in, nothing really changed for this film. There's no excitement here. Now, I've said many times, and I'll say it again, the first movie in this, the Captain Marvel movie that came out about 2 months before Endgame, was a fluke at the box office. The fact that that movie made over $1 billion was due almost entirely to the fact of the popularity of the movies that led into it, combined with the movie Endgame that was coming out immediately after it. It was billed as a film that you had to see before the climactic events of what became one of the biggest movies at the box office of all time. Take that out of the equation, and you wind up with what we've got today with The Marvels. Remember, Disney decided not to even allow Brie Larson to headline in her own sequel film. We didn't get Captain Marvel 2. We got The Marvels, where they fed in additional C and D tier Marvel characters to try to help somehow support this new movie coming out in a couple of weeks. And frankly, it just isn't working. Nobody really watched Ms. Marvel on Disney Plus when it came out some months ago. Nobody, at least not in large enough numbers, really watched WandaVision, which introduced the world, or at least the television world, to Monica Rambeau. Marvel Cinematic Universe titles are consistently the most expensive productions in Hollywood, each and every single time. So how then did Disney expect to cover their costs on a movie like The Marvels when seemingly nobody really watched WandaVision and Ms. Marvel leading into this? And then you combine that with the fact that even after the first movie did $1 billion in the box office, toy sales and merchandise sales for that character were virtually non-existent. There's still scores of Captain Marvel action figures sitting out there on discount shelves at Ollie's right next to Rose Tico dolls. But I suppose Disney decided to have another go at it and throw another $300 million down the drain and are now hoping for the best. But even Disney seems to now understand that this is probably not going to work out. Let me show you. This from Luis Fernando, a fellow box office aficionado over there on X, formerly known as Twitter. Disney's apparent lack of confidence in the Marvels is really giving me those Dark Phoenix deja vus. It was already concerning that the studio never considered pushing the blockbuster back to 2024 despite the SAG-AFTRA strikes, almost as if they didn't think this film, The Marvels, was worth fighting for, or at least trying to fight for. But now, apart from a very appalling final promotional push so far, specifically for an MCU film, a sequel to a $1 billion box office hit called Captain Marvel. Although, to be fair, the mouse at least attached the Marvel's questionable trailer on both Barbie and the Taylor Swift Eras Tour film, so ladies out there should know it's coming out. The studio, at least of now, won't even allow social media reactions until the day it hits theaters in several overseas markets. And that's another concern in and of itself. See, it's one thing to embargo any spoilers until the day a movie comes out in the cases of especially MCU titles, which typically offer a few cameos and surprises, which this one apparently will be as well. But in the case of this situation, this is one where they're not going to allow any reviews of any kind to come out on this movie until its opening day. That is a bit of a head scratcher. A lot of folks out there would be forgiven for thinking that Disney has no confidence in this film and fear that if reviews come out too soon, it's going to spoil what little hype there is for this film that may still remain by that point. And don't forget, this is even with Disney allegedly paying for positive reviews by actual reviewers on places like Rotten Tomatoes. And that's why we've been more cognizant in recent months of the top critic score on Rotten Tomatoes rather than all critics, because those all critics, the ones that are not the top critics themselves, seem to be more susceptible to taking a few handouts from certain studios to give their movies favorable praise. But Louise continues, currently on both social media reactions and critics' full review embargo will be lifted only on early morning of Wednesday, November 8th, the same day the Marvels kicks off its global rollout in several European and Asian markets such as Korea, Hong Kong, France, Italy, Germany, and others. And just one day before Thursday previews happen in the US, a very unusual event for an MCU film. Even Endgame, which had the mission to keep secrets under wraps for as long as possible, allowed social media reactions on Monday, 2 days before its rollout and kickoff, and 3 days prior to U.S. previews night. But it's not only Disney that seems not enthusiastic about the film. Pre-sales for the Marvels have been the weakest for an MCU title post-COVID. Yeah, even under the Eternals. What could denote a lack of interest from general audiences in the new entry? And as for Disney, to be so adamant in preventing people from talking about the film prior to its release, it could mean that the studio might fear that word of mouth won't do the Marvels any favors either. And speaking of Dark Phoenix, that movie grossed $65.8 million in the U.S. run back in 2019. And judging by current pre-sales, the Marvel faces a serious risk of opening not that much higher, specifically if reactions and reviews don't give it the sales boost it desperately needs. But look down here in one of the comments and replies, and this is something that I think I completely agree with from Fanjecture. All marketing has shifted to Wish. And Luis Fernando agrees. I noticed that as well. He says, that's so weird. But is it really that weird? I want you to think back a year ago when Disney was anticipating the release of Strange World. That movie was tracking very poorly, and something that WDW Pro and I both noticed was that marketing seemed to be shifting away from that film. The original dollars that Disney would have allocated from distribution to pay for advertising was shifted over to Wakanda Forever, Black Panther 2. Matter of fact, we had heard some news from some of our sources that seemed to confirm exactly that. So this would not be the first time that Disney, or any studio for that matter, would make a decision like this. At some point, you have to understand you need to cut your losses, and spending an extra $100 million to market a film above and beyond maybe 50 to 60 million to maybe 80 million, just enough to get people's attention, might not get you any more ticket sales, and therefore is a waste of money. I guess beyond the waste of money that this movie probably already is. Disney may not have walked totally away from this. Remember, this film was supposed to come out in July, summertime of this year, and then it was flipped with The Haunted Mansion. So this big summer blockbuster-style release for the Marvels was buried back in November, and now is apparently being left to die, short of one final Hail Mary from the Walt Disney Company. And that seems to be deliberately leaking out a bit of cameo information. Now, if you're interested in not having any spoilers on the Marvels, then I suggest you mute for the next few seconds. According to places like Big Screen Leaks and even similar hinting from friends like Josh over at Den of Nerds, we get stuff like this. So now everyone is interested in the Marvels. A rumor about one scene legacy cameo appears online, and the same people who were trashing the movie and calling it a flop are suddenly excited. And that's in reference to what appears to be a likely X-Men appearance, the first time the X-Men or X-Men characters will appear in an MCU-branded film under the Walt Disney Company, of course, since the acquisition of Fox back in 2019. Now, I don't know if that's really going to drive traffic and interest, but maybe I can understand why Disney would want to let that slip out between the cracks to try to drive interest without having to spend a ton of money marketing a film that they seem to still think is going to flop. But here's the reality. As I've said before, I don't think the X-Men coming in at this point is going to do much to save the Marvel Cinematic Universe in its current state. There have been too many bad films. There have been too much fan detachment since Endgame due to the type of content that they've released since then. Of course, they've taken it from what was the MCU in phases 1 through 3, which were billion-dollar guaranteed hits virtually every single time they hit the theater, to now a basically C and D tier led of female cast and characters that honestly nobody's really interested in. Remember, Disney bought things like Marvel and Star Wars for the boys and then proceeded to kick the boys in the nuts and replace them all with girls. We're going to know in a couple of weeks what is really what with the Marvels, but I don't expect a whole lot. You see, in this day and age, especially for a fan base that has been detached, as I said, from a property like the MCU, many more of them are going to be inclined to just wait 12 to 24 hours, and those little cameo scenes they're talking about, maybe 30 seconds worth of the X-Men, they'll just go find it on YouTube or somewhere else on social media, as opposed to sitting through a 2-hour film that they don't care about to begin with. I think the days of Disney being able to throw in little tricks at the end of Marvel movies to get people to go, oh wow, I've got to go see this now, are over, because there's nothing else out there to get them excited about. People just don't trust what's going on right now in the MCU, and I think they're years away from being able to even think about salvaging their financial returns for these massively expensive films. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hope to see you again soon, and until then, take care.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.